Welcome. Good evening. My name is Leanna Levine-Reisner, and I'm the President and Network Director of Plant-Powered Metro New York. We're so excited to have you joining us. Plant-Powered Metro New York empowers our diverse communities to find better health and overcome chronic disease through whole food, plant-based nutrition. We're here to help you learn and make meaningful changes to your lifestyle. Over the past 6 weeks, we have been celebrating our 5th anniversary on the theme of being rooted. Since 2019, Plant Powered Metro has put down roots. So our programming has played on the theme of roots, root vegetables, cultural roots, and like today, root causes. You can find out more on our website. We're posting that in the comments feed. Normally, we spend most of our time talking about food and human health, but in light of major environmental and climate concerns, we periodically take a pause to recognize the role of food in the health of our global ecosystems. Major environmental challenges such as greenhouse gas emissions, groundwater depletion, rising temperatures, and food shortages may seem insurmountable, but how we eat has the power to improve each of these issues and more simultaneously. Today's webinar is presented in honor of Earth Month and in partnership with Humane Montclair and Planted Society, who are in the middle of a month-long initiative called Plant-Based for the Planet, showcasing plant-based dining options in Montclair, New Jersey. To help us learn more about food as a root cause of climate change, we are welcoming Dr. Michael Klaper. Dr. Klaper is an internationally recognized physician, teacher, and speaker on the intersection between nutrition and health. He's the founder of an initiative called Moving Medicine Forward, which provides foundational nutrition education for medical students who often receive so little. And he recently became the Director of Telemedicine Services for Aroga Lifestyle Medicine in Victoria, British Columbia. As Dr. Klaper presents this evening, feel free to share your comments and questions in the feed, and we'll return to them during our Q&A later in the hour. Welcome, Dr. Klaper. It's great to have you.
Thank you, Leanna. What an honor to be with you guys, and good for you for getting this word out so creatively. It's just a delight to be with you. Should we get into the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So let me, let's see if, how does this go? How does that appear to you guys? Can you see okay? Can you see my slide, the Food Planet Connection? Hello?
Looks great. Yeah, thank you.
You can? Okay, great. Well, this is probably the most important lecture that I can possibly give because all our futures depend upon the information inherent in this presentation. As Leanna mentioned, for the past going on 4 years now, I've been going to the nation's medical schools and talking to the first, second, third year medical students, the interns, the residents, the young attending physicians. And I've been giving them a lecture about what I wish I learned in medical school about nutrition, because the reality is that the majority of diseases that these young doctors are going to spend their entire careers treating are largely the result of what their patients are eating, namely the standard American diet. And I tell them my experience when I spent 8 years on the staff of True North Health Center in Santa Rosa, California, about an hour north of San Francisco. I was an attending physician, and people came into True North with the same grim collection of chronic diseases. Most of them were overweight, if not clinically obese. We saw florid vascular blood vessel disease showing up as high lipids, high blood pressure, clogged arteries, rampant type 2 diabetes, and a host of inflammatory diseases affecting every organ system from lungs to gut to joints to immune system. This is Western medicine in the 21st century. These are the chronic diseases that by far take up the majority of time, energy, and money that our healthcare system spends on trying to keep us healthy, rather unsuccessfully, if I might add. And I tell these young docs that when people came into True North, instead of raising their doses of insulin and beta blockers, we put them on a diet based on whole plant foods. Every morning there was a big container of oatmeal with lots of colorful fruit and nuts and seeds to put on it with various plant milks. Every lunch, every dinner had big colorful salads, hearty vegetable soups, big plates of steamed green and yellow vegetables, and a host of no oil entrees for chilies and soups and stews, and no cheese burritos and no oil stir fries, and lots of colorful fruits for dessert. This was the food stream that we had these people send through their bodies with every meal, breakfast, lunch, dinner, day after day, week after week. Many of them stayed for several weeks, even several months. And the changes we saw were nothing short of spectacular. Within days, the obesity begins to melt away. They lose about 2 pounds a day for the first few weeks and about a pound a day. Their arteries begin to relax and subtly dilate. Their blood pressures come down. Then we're able to reduce the amount of medications they're on. Inflammation throughout the body improves. Their joints stop hurting. Their lungs stop wheezing. With all the fiber and the fruits and the vegetables and the beans and nuts and seeds and grains, with all this fiber, they have the first good bowel movement in years that inevitably improves their outlook on the whole universe. Their skin conditions, the eczema, the psoriasis, often improves right before our eyes in matters of days to weeks. As I said, the asthmatic folks use their inhalers much less. Their sinus infections start to clear. They sleep better. And we're able to reduce the dosages of insulin and heart medications, blood pressure medications, and usually stop these medicines altogether. We witness a phenomenon that no one mentioned to me in medical school called disease reversal. And it really should be the gold standard goal of not only every doctor, but every patient. They should both be working towards reversing their chronic disease. And what are we talking about? We're talking about remission of clinical symptoms. As I said, their lungs stop wheezing, their joints stop hurting, their blood pressure normalizes, but also their laboratory results also normalize, their inflammatory markers, their lipid numbers, etc. They get better. This is the definition of disease reversal, and it's what we see routinely at True North, and it's available to every person who follows the advice of this wonderful organization and adopts a whole food plant-based diet. You too can experience this remarkable phenomenon of disease reversal. And as I became a student of the effects of what plant-based diets can do to the human body, I began to realize that the major 9 diseases that constitute the most of the disease burden in Western societies today, the clogged arteries, the type 2 diabetes, the obesity, high blood pressure, the autoimmune diseases, the inflammatory conditions like lupus, ankylosing spondylitis, inflammatory bowel disease, colitis, Crohn's disease, asthma, psoriasis, all these conditions will improve or resolve completely with a whole food plant-based diet. And nowadays, it's hard to open a medical journal without seeing some article on the effects of plant-based diet upon disease X, fill in whatever disease. There's now going to be more and more reports of a plant-based diet's ability to reverse these diseases. And it's such an exciting time to be practicing medicine. You should really seek out a physician who is aware of the power of plants, but more importantly, just do it yourself. You probably have to see that physician much, much less, which would be just fine with all of us. And I tell the young medical students and the young doctors that a whole food, plant-based food stream is arguably among the most powerful healing modalities that any physician can wield. You can make the difference between truly healing your patient or just managing their chronic diseases, which is a dismal way to practice medicine. And I open up this possibility to them. I like Johnny Appleseed scattering seeds everywhere of good ideas. But, those seeds get planted and you can't unring the bell. These students are eventually going to see it and act upon it themselves. And it makes my work so worthwhile to see the light go on in these young doctors' heads. And if you're interested, as was put up here, go to movingmedforward.com, and you can learn about what we're doing and how you can support us if you would like. But given the theme of this month's work of your plant-based metro organization, there's bigger issues involved here than our cholesterol level, our blood sugar, and our waistline. Because I'm most concerned about my biggest, most important patient. I grew up in the forest of Wisconsin. I'm a passionate environmentalist, and I am distressed at what I see. If our dear planet was an actual medical patient, there are serious signs that she is in trouble. She's running a fever, her temperature is elevated, as we're all aware of it going up. Her digestive powers, or the soils that turn old organic material into food for new generations of plants, we're losing her digestive ability as we damage the soil. Her circulation is clogged. The rivers that bring life to all that exist on the planet, they're getting clogged up and polluted. She's got circulatory problems. And she's in respiratory failure. Carbon dioxide is going up. She's getting more intensive care is really what is required. So let me share with you what that really means. Because the rate of global warming is increasing, as we're all shockingly aware. And quite honestly, from this physician to all of you, it doesn't matter what your cholesterol level is if we don't have a habitable planet to live on. So let's get our priorities straight here. The rate of global warming is increasing. Why is this happening? Very simple. There used to be 6 trillion trees on planet Earth. And for the forests of the land cool the land. They bring in the clouds. They keep the rivers flowing. They purify the soils. The forests are the glowing covering of the land masses on the planet. And they are to be treated with reverence. And all the native population, the Native American people who live there, the Aborigines in Australia, all the native folks knew that you don't damage the game board that the game is being played on. The forests are sacred. But us Western European folks, we don't look at the forest that way. We look at how many trees can we cut down and turn into lumber and paper and clear that land, open it up. And as a result, over the last 500 years, we have cut down 3 trillion trees. Half the trees on planet Earth have been cut down. And it's the major driving force of why carbon dioxide is going up, why heating of the earth is happening, why the rivers are getting so polluted. Why is this land cleared? Yes, the pioneers cut down trees to make log cabins, etc. But that's not the main reason these trees were cut down. The main reason these trees are being cut down is to grow animals for their flesh. The vast majority of the land that is opened up, if you will, when the forest is removed, grows either grains to feed the cattle, sheep, chickens, etc., or by letting grass grow so you can graze the sheep and the cows and the grazing animals. It's either for grazing land or for cropland to feed them. And so let's be clear. You drive through Iowa and you see all these waving fields, green corn. That corn is not destined for tortillas and popcorn. That's animal fodder that's going to be shoveled down the throats of hundreds of millions of cows and pigs and chickens for their flesh when we slaughter them. And the grass, and you drive through Illinois, my home state, and you see mile after mile of fields of soybeans. It's the major crop in Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, etc. That soy is not destined for tofu and tempeh, folks. That's animal fodder. It gets mixed in with the feed corn and shoveled down the gullets of hundreds of millions of cows, pigs, chickens, and animals whose throats will be cut and put in our supermarket for humans to eat their flesh. And the problem is when you cut down the forest will come back. The edge of the forest, the trees at the edge of the forest drop their seeds, and new seeds grow, and new trees grow, and eventually the forest will come back. But the farmer who's growing those soybeans and the corn, I'll call them the grain producer. I know they're truly farmers here, but those folks do not want those forests coming back. So what do they do to keep the land open? They burn it. This is a NASA satellite photo of planet Earth on a given day. These are all the fires that have been set intentionally by human beings to burn the new growth forest that's coming back to keep the crop land and the grazing land open for the production of animal flesh. We are burning planet Earth on a daily basis to feed our flesh consumption habit. The Earth is indeed on fire, literally. You can see it from space. You can see it as you drive around. So what are we doing about it? That's basically our attitude. Yeah, isn't that too bad? Wow. Well, anyway, let me drop this golf shot here. We cannot keep going like this. We are robbing our children's futures by our rabid consumption of animal flesh that's totally unneeded, as we see the results of diets free of animal flesh that are based on whole plant foods as a curative health enhancing diet. It's the diet based on meat and dairy products and the refined sugars and oils and modern processed foods that are the real culprits of our disease problems. So what do? This is really bleak. What are the answers? Wherein lies hope? Well, hope can be found in one sentence from one of my heroes of the environmental movements, heroines really, Frances Moore Lappé, who said, hope doesn't come from calculating whether the good news is winning over the bad. Hope is simply a choice to take action. That's where hope will come from, and that's what I want to spur you to do over the remaining few minutes of this talk. So wherein lies hope? 3 things you can do. Educate yourself about the issues, transform your practices and your communications, and organize yourselves. We're all on this planet, and there's lots of people becoming aware of this, and including your noble organization. And so these are 3 things that can be done. How to go about doing this? First of all, educate yourself. There are some wonderful books that spell it out beautifully. I urge you to go to the website of Dr. Richard Oppenlander called Comfortably Unaware, which is just where the meat and dairy industries want us, and read his wonderful book called Comfortably Unaware, but he's got lots of videos and articles on his website. So go to comfortablyunaware.com. And start reading. The Bible of the environmental issues are found in John Robbins' wonderful book, Diet for a New America. It changed my life when I read it. I urge you, if you haven't read it yet, do yourself a favor, read John Robbins' books. It's a thick book, and if you're not, if you're intimidated by taking on a book, but it's a quick read, truth of it is. But if you don't want to read a thick book, there's some wonderful ones that you could read in an evening. One of them is Healthy Eating, Healthy World by Jim Hicks, and his wonderful organization, the 4-Leaf organization. Go to 4leafglobal.org and subscribe to his wonderful, inspiring newsletters. He's really clanging the bell very loudly. But there are videos. If you haven't seen Cowspiracy and Seaspiracy, please see them. It'll really click things into focus for you. As I said, read Comfortably Unaware. And there's a couple of organizations, Climate Healers and Extinction Rebellion. I'll talk a bit about Climate Healers in a minute. And if you only have a few hours, please get Glenn Mercer's wonderful book called Food is Climate. And he makes it very clear that we have used meat eating up. The time of flesh eating the mighty hunter has passed. We've got to change gears here if we want to survive on this planet. And Glenn makes a strong plea that we not only And again, in the first 60 pages of Glenn's book here, he presents the case just brilliantly. But he urged you to check out a wonderful organization called Climate Healers. That's spearheaded by Dr. Sailesh Rao. You can all you need to know about Dr. Rao is his wonderful statement: compassion for all life is infinitely sustainable. Now go to climatehealers.org and you'll see his instructions and his guidance, how we can change our species from a predator species, as Homo sapiens is now, to caretaker species, Homo ahimsa. What a lovely concept. And by the way, this is one hillside. But the land on the left is where grazing animals, where cattle have been grazing, and you can humans can fatten them up and slaughter them for meat. You can see what grazing animals do to the land. There's a fence down the middle, and no grazing animal has been allowed on the right-hand side, and the image speaks for itself. And Dr. Rao makes it very clear the reality of what's driving our climate crises here. The simple physics, the simple energy kinetics of feeding ourselves. A standard American diet, if you're going to eat meat and dairy, it takes 2 football fields of land to grow and the grains to feed the cows and the pigs and the chicken to graze them, etc. 2 football fields of land and resources to feed 1 person for a year. But if those 2 football fields were planted in corn and beans and potatoes and fruits and vegetables, you could feed 14 people on those same 2 football fields of land. That is how dramatically more efficient a plant-based diet is than an animal-based diet. So what would happen if everybody ate a plant-based diet? 5 billion football fields worth of land could be returned to forests. Think about that. What would happen if the world went vegan overnight? Well, we'd have no need for the animals or their food, and that would free up a land area the size of Africa. And only 20% of that would be needed to grow food for the 7 or 8 billion new herbivore people on the planet. And the rest of the land, we could let the forest come back. And the spectacularly positive, hopeful statistics are that if we let the forest trees grow back in only half of that land that's been cleared for farming, as the trees grow, they take carbon dioxide out of the air and turn it into solid wood. And the trees that would grow on just half the land that would be freed up on those former soybean fields and cornfields, etc., those trees would absorb over time 265 gigatons. A gigaton's a billion tons of carbon dioxide. Since that is how much carbon dioxide would be taken out of the atmosphere by those trees growing. Well, it turns out that since before the Industrial Revolution, 1750, when you look at all the carbon dioxide that we've released into the air, it's only 240 gigatons. And so just letting those trees come back would more than absorb all the CO2 that have been released. You know, I have to laugh when I see, I shake my head actually, when I see these projects to carbon capture technology and all these machines that are developing to take carbon dioxide out of the air with dubious results. Well, it turns out Mother Nature already invented the best carbon capture device on the planet. They're called trees. And you don't even need to plant them. The forests will spread themselves. They plant themselves if we just let them and stop burning them and cutting them down. And what happens? The earth will heal if we do that. With a transition to a plant-based diet, the forest will come back. And that will stabilize the soils that are now eroding off these corn and soybean fields. And those soils will heal. The rivers will run clean again without all the manure and pesticides and eroding soil flushing into them that are making them run brown and polluted now. The oceans will begin to heal as all the fertilizers stop pouring into the gulfs where the rivers flow into the oceans. The global warming will start to reverse. And there'll be more than enough food for everyone. Though we can feed the staples, the corn and beans and potatoes to everyone on planet Earth easily. There's more than enough land. And whether there's enough land and water for everyone, those are the main driving causes of wars and suffering and starvation. That all goes away just for the simple expediency of ordering the bean chili instead of the beef chili. A little tongue in cheek, but really that's what we're talking about here. It's not a great sacrifice to have the bean chili instead of the beef chili and all that implies. So what's the message? The message is the time to stop eating animals has come, because the truth is, people, all other plans to mitigate climate change, all the carbon capture and all this, they're doomed to fail if those plans do not include the cessation of the production and eating of animals. We've used animal eating up, and unless we change our diet, nothing else is going to save us. And by the way, speaking of using things up, we've used the oceans up. We've used fishing up. People say, well, we'll just eat fish. Well, we have strip mined the ocean. We have clear cut the ocean. We kill 1 to 3 trillion sea animals every year in the nets and the hooks and the pollution. And most of them are just ground up and used as fertilizer to grow more feed corn and soybeans to make more animal flesh. And if you have not seen this remarkable film called Seaspiracy, please see it. It will change your view of, well, we can just eat fish. I'll order the salmon in the restaurant. You're going to not order salmon after you see this film and all that fishing does to our oceans. So it's time to marshal our forces. It's time to get active, as Francis Moore Lepay tells us. Locally, what can you do? First of all, do it yourself. Be an example. You don't have to proselytize, but do it yourself. Become a healthy plant-based eater. And share it. Put on potlucks, pass out the handouts, give local talks if you wish, show videos at your house. Do what you can do locally. But also regionally, where's your water come from? Where's your food come from? What can you do to protect these precious resources? Become more regionally connected. And finally, not finally, but on a national level, write your congressperson. What are you going to tell them? First of all, who's your senator? Who's your representative? Do you really know? Well, it's easy to find out. Just go to who'smyrepresentative.com. And type in your zip code, and there will be your congressman, or congressperson, and your senator. And what are you telling? What are you writing them? The Farm Bill is coming up, where hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies are given to the meat industry, the dairy industry, to keep these destructive practices going. They need to hear from us. And in just one sentence, write your senator or congressperson, in consideration of the upcoming Farm Bill, I strongly urge you to oppose subsidies to animal agricultural industries that damage the environment, and to support plant-based industries that heal the environment. And it helps if you can name the Farm Bill or the associated bills with their proper Senate or House number. Go to pcm.org. They are extensively cover the Farm Bill and get the numbers of the various bills that are coming up. But they need to hear from you and us. Every senator and congressperson knows that for every letter they get from one person, there's really 100 other people, 100 other voters out there who feel the same way. So this is a place to exert your influence. Well, what about the farmers and ranchers? They get very upset. My daddy's been grazing cattle on this land. My great-granddaddy been there for 100 years. You're going to take my land away from me. I've been raising dairy cows here, producing milk for 3 generations. You're going to take my land away from me. No, nobody's going to take their land away. The farmers and the ranchers, they're not the enemy. They are our brothers and sisters that are growing our food for this. Don't chastise them. Don't alienate them. Help them. Help them do something else with the land. Help the farmers and ranchers transition to growing food for people directly. Help these folks build one less aircraft carrier and take those $60 billion and start the Farmers and Ranchers Transition Administration and help these folks, send them to the local community college to learn how to grow new crops, buy their seeds for them, buy their equipment for them, give them crop insurance for 10 years, send their kids to college with scholarships, put internet in everybody's house, pay their mortgage for 10 years, help these people. Don't punish them. Don't grind them up in the gears of economics. They're growing our food. So it's not a zero-sum game where these vegans are going to take away my land. No, they're going to help you do something positive for your land to directly feed people directly. There is an organization that is working to bring this about. It's called the Agricultural Fairness Alliance. I urge you to go to their website, agriculturalfairnessalliance.org, and learn what they're doing. And you can support their efforts as well. But again, the farmers and ranchers aren't the enemy. They are people who need our help. And we need to change our societal view of meat eating, where it's just normal. You got to have a piece of animal muscle in the middle of your plate, or you're not going to get your protein. That we know is patently medically untrue. All the protein you need out of greens and beans and fruits and vegetables. But we got to change society's view of flesh eating. Meat eating needs to become as uncool as wearing fur, or smoking cigarettes. I asked the med students, what would you do if one of your fellow students pulled out a pack of Marlboros and lit up? You'd say, man, are you still doing that? Don't you know what that does to your health? Well, we've got to get to the point when someone orders a beef burger or a steak. Man, are you still eating that stuff? Don't you know what that does to not only your body, but the planet? We need some magic here. We've seen magic before. When I grew up, the Berlin Wall was the biggest, darkest, scariest symbol of Soviet domination, all the barbed wire and machine guns and tanks behind it. And it was making a statement that we're here and we're going to be here forever. Yeah, but society and times change. And 20 years of economic trade and blue jeans and Beatles music and a new generation of young people growing up looked at that wall and says, that is an artifact of the past, that we don't need it anymore. And in 1989, we watched that wall come down in a weekend because people's understanding changed. And we can do that with meat eating. We watched Nelson Mandela walk out of Robert prison and become the president of his country. This is magic that we can create. It's not too late. It's not too difficult. Changing our food choices is the one thing we can do. It doesn't cost anything. People are worried about the bill. It doesn't cost anything to order the bean chili rather than the beef chili, to get plant-based options available in schools and hospitals and restaurants. And kudos to Mayor Adams and everyone who's working to get those plant-based entrees into the New York City hospitals. You guys have made such wonderful progress. We are cheering you on. Keep leading the way. It's so important. And the old order changes and people get concerned about that. But when you think about it, there's lots of things that we grew up with that outlived their usefulness, if it had any at all. The typewriters and dial telephones and reel-to-reel tape recorders, I thought they would be here forever. And poof, they're gone. They are of another era. Well, what's in this man's burger? The fact that we raise and slaughter billions of animals every year to eat their flesh. Good heavens, can that be something that we used to do? We look back and say, can we put something else in this man's sandwich that doesn't involve all this industrial slaughter and destruction of the planet? Because really, the folks who are advocating these carnivore diets and paleo diets, I would ask them, really, are you truly, with a straight face, advocating a flesh-based meal 2 to 3 times a day for 8 billion people? What are you talking about? The earth simply cannot sustain that. It's time to enlarge your understanding of food, where it comes from, what it does in our bodies to the planet. And certainly these young people deserve a better future than that. And so to all of those folks who are not already on the plant-based wagon, I would tell them, listen, it's not just about you. We are plundering these children's futures, and these children are the future. And it's no fair what we are doing to us, largely due to this ingrained habit of eating animal flesh. Well, that needs to be relegated to the dustbin of history. We need to become the Homo ahimsa, the plant-eating hominids that we really are designed to be from our digestive system. And, and that is the main reason between you and me why I'm going to the medical students and imparting a plant-based message. Yes, it's going to make them better physicians. It's going to help all the patients they treat. It's going to make medicine more economical and satisfying. Yes. But deep in my heart, I know that for every doctor who becomes a plant-based advocate, who at every visit asks his patients, by the way, how's your plant-based diet going? I went plant-based last year. I feel great. How about you? If every doctor was saying that, they would not only reap the benefits in their own medical practice, but it would motivate their patients to change, because my noble profession is the greatest bottleneck that's keeping our society from making this plant-based transition, so I'm working to reach these students before pharmacosclerosis sets into their brains and they think that drugs and surgery are the only treatment for these diseases. I'm telling them clearly it's the food. It's what change your patient's diet, and you will see them get healthy as they become plant-based in their eating. So, final slide. What's on your plate? Just all our futures. That's all. So the simple admonition, it looks overwhelming, but I can tell you, do what you can, where you are, with what you have. If we all do that, it's going to become a better world without doubt. And with that, I will conclude my comments. And again, if you want to learn what we're doing, go to movingmedforward.com. Thank you for the opportunity to share this message with you. So,
thank you. Yes, this is wonderful, Dr. Klaper. I wanted to just jump in, and first of all, your words are so inspirational from start to finish. The earth is a patient, the forest is sacred. Everything that you offer is hopeful and solution oriented. And honestly, you've been doing this work for decades and decades. So something's got to keep you hopeful all the way along. What drives your hope at the end of the day?
Oh, the power and the truth of this message and the young people, young people in the internet give me hope because once the word gets out that our meat-based diet is destroying all our futures, you can spread around the world with 3 clicks of the mouse. And as the young people see this, yeah, wow, I didn't know that. Really? Oh, well, I'm going to have the veggie burger next time. It's all it would take. And then they go to mom and dad and say, who are serving meat at the meal, and say, this is I don't feel good about this anymore. That's how the change is really going to happen. But I say it's such an easy thing to do. There's those 2 choice points. Is when you're pushing that shopping cart down the aisle at the supermarket and deciding what goes in that basket to bring home and what you're going to make for your family. You have power at that moment. And when you're in the restaurant with that menu in front of you, I tell my standard folks, say, listen, every time you look up at the wait person and say, I'll have the beef, I'll have the chicken, I'll have the lamb, every time you say those words, your children and grandchildren's world gets a little hotter, a little drier, a little deader. We've used meat eating up, and it's uncool because it's making things very hot. So the information's out there, and do you think the things that we 10 years ago, if you said the word microbiome, no one knows what you're talking about. Now everybody knows about it. That's how quickly a concept can spread. So plant-based eating as a salvation of our health and our planet is the next concept. And the one I give the medical students, disease reversal through plant-based nutrition. To put that in the heads of the doctors. Wow, you can reverse these diseases. Nobody told me that. That gives me hope as well. So I'll keep working at our respective places and it'll all get better.
That's great. I wanted to ask you about that too, because with disease reversal, there's this concept of healing that I think most people aren't even aware of day to day, right? That we have the ability, we have the programming inside our cells to heal. And you spoke about this before, imagery of healing. The oceans will heal. There's more food for all of us. And this beautiful sort of micro macro alignment that happens with this. So as a person who's witnessed healing so dramatically on a personal level, I'm thinking especially about your time at True North, both with food and with water fasting. How you must see the world through a completely different lens when you've witnessed this come to life.
Oh, absolutely. It's hard to read a medical journal without shaking my head and and seeing the abysmal ignorance of my profession. The truth of it is, and it's embarrassing already. As it for the medical scientists can identify a genetic mismatch on gene A21 on chromosome 14. Boy, they can home in on that with precision. But the thought that cheeseburgers and pepperoni pizzas might be clogging up our patients' arteries, this is somehow too abstruse a concept for most of them to grasp. And again, there's reasons why they're not taught about nutrition. They don't get paid for it. They don't have time for it. And so they've got their reasons, and it's easy just to blow right past it in medical education, which is what is happening now. And we're going to the medical curriculum designers saying you've got to include clinical nutrition in all 4 years of medical school. In the basic science, 2 years, you talk about it in the biochemistry, the anatomy, the physiology of the body. Where does plant-based nutrition fit into all of those? And in the clinical years, every rotation the medical student goes through, internal medicine, surgery, pediatrics, obstetrics, ask your professors, do you think the patient's diet has something to do with their high blood pressure, their diabetes? Is there a plant-based dietitian on staff that we could refer this patient to? There's ways medicine could change, and we're working to bring those changes about. It's slow. It's like turning an ocean liner, but it's slowly happening. Where we are making inroads there. But yeah, it's quite a scene to survey when I look at the medical landscape these days. But we're working to change that for the better.
Yeah, I was just thinking to myself about having recently heard a physician say, well, we don't really have conclusive evidence yet, so I don't want to counsel something so extreme for my patients without knowing for sure that it's going to make a difference. And I feel like that's a very I don't know, fill in the adjective you'd like to use there, but it's a difficult conversation when we are almost slavishly following science, and science just doesn't. There is science, of course, that backs this all up, but it's much hidden in the world of high tech. And this reminds me, you mentioned in your talk, we are interested in these high tech practices for carbon capture. We're drawn to technology for our answers, whether it's the technology of drugs or the animal feed that results in lower methane emissions. There are economic forces at play, but there must be something also ingrained in our minds as humanity of like progress equals technology. But in your experience, that's been the opposite, correct?
Absolutely. And there's a saying somewhere, none is so blind as he who will not see. And my colleagues in medicine, it's almost a willful ignorance. I don't know anything about it. It's going to injure my patient flow, my income, whatever. And no doctor goes into medicine for the money, and no one is intentionally allowing their patients to be sick or less than healthy because they want to make more money. I'm not implying that in the least, but it certainly shakes the intellectual model of how medicine is practiced. It shakes their economic model of how medicine is practiced. But it's time to shake it up. You can see what's happening in America. We're becoming fatter and sicker and going bankrupt with Band-Aid medicine, which is what these bypass grafts really are there. So again, it's time to get to the root causes of the diseases, as you appropriately said at the beginning.
Thanks. Yeah. And, you brought this up before also in the talk about climate, animals and climate. We might think, oh, well, as long as we're eating healthier animals that are raised on good pastures and things might be better. But you even said, look, we're clearing forests for both grazing and for the feed itself. But there's much more to grass-fed beef and free-range chicken from a dietary perspective too, that will not necessarily contribute to health. Can you share a little bit more about the trade-offs that are at stake there when people choose better meat products?
Sure. I mean, in all of the better meat products, this is marketing. They just want to keep doing what they're doing. Okay. And so along comes, grass-fed beef. Well, there's certainly no medical advantage when you're running that animal flesh and the saturated fat through your bloodstream. Now, there's no advantage that people who eat grass-fed beef don't have fewer heart attacks, etc. But very importantly for the planet, if the people think they're doing something good by eating grass-fed beef, get them out of those bad feedlots, it turns out, surprise, surprise, that the grass-fed cattle add more carbon dioxide to the atmosphere than the feedlot cattle do. Why? Because they live 3 times longer. It takes a long time to fatten a cow just grazing on pasture grass. Normally, cattle will go from little baby calves up to slaughter weight cows in about 16 to 20 months. But to raise a cow on grass, you've got to keep them alive for 3 to 4 years, and every day of those extra years, they're walking around breathing out carbon dioxide, pooping out methane-heavy manure. Grass-fed beef is actually a disaster for the planet. Plus, given the prodigious amounts of animal flesh that are consumed, there's no way that grass-fed beef could come anywhere near meeting the beef consumption rates that are currently indulged in. And if pasture-raised beef sold for what it really costs, these folks had to pay for the water and the soil erosion mediation and the CO2 offset. These burgers would cost $90 a piece, and which is what they really should cost. So all the way around, it's a marketing scam. Don't kid yourself. Animal flesh is animal flesh, and it's time to stop producing it and eating it.
Yeah. And now there's also, of course, a huge tidal wave of plant-based food products on shelves in the freezer section. And we could say, yes, these are, doing a great job of replacing animal foods for environmental purposes. But we know that there are also imperfect health results that happen as a result of this. So can you share just more for our audience members who might not be aware about the benefits of unprocessed plant-based foods and what that means when you're surrounded by plant-based options on the shelves?
Indeed. And as far as the whole food plant-based diet, the staples, the potatoes, the grains, the beans, peas, chickpeas, lentils, these are cheap. People say, it's expensive to eat this way. No, you can buy a 10-pound bag of rice for $6. You buy a 10-pound bag of lentils for $11, and you can eat a month's worth of meals off of the rice and lentils. The staples are cheap. The money isn't the issue. But now the burgers, the Impossible Burgers, and the Beyond Beef or whatever, and their ilk, the chicken cutlets and the fish fillets have now shown up in profusion in the supermarkets. What do I think about them? I'll say, as a nutritionally based physician, no one's saying that these are the bastion of health foods. And yes, they are processed. Many of them have too much salt, too much saturated fat. Absolutely. However, there's some things that are definitely in their favor. There are no cholesterol. They should be free of antibiotics. You don't have to give antibiotics to broccoli or to rice. They should be free of the pesticides and herbicides if they're produced with organic grains, etc. There are definite health advantages, but I welcome these foods as transition foods. If they can help Joe meat and potato guy bite into one of these burgers, hey, that's not bad, I could eat that. And if a couple times a week he wants to have one of those burgers, as just to show him that he can get through a meat-based meal or a lunch or a dinner without actual animal flesh, I think they're performing a valuable service. But again, they're transition foods. They're to be phased out over time to help people really get into the whole food, plant-based stream of eating that they should be in. And no one needs to actually go through that stage. There's so many wonderful, delicious chilies and stews and soups and curries that no one really needs to eat these foods at all. And I'm not advocating them. But those who do, if they're used as a transition food, I'm okay with that. We've got some Impossible burgers in our freezer. I have one about every 2 months. So I have on a Saturday afternoon, my wife will cook one up. And you have one every couple of months. No, lightning's not going to come out of the sky and strike you dead. And it reminds me of the days past. But that's all it is. It's just a little taste treat. But Elise is making delicious Buddha bowls tonight with lots of quinoa and greens and her lovely tahini dressing. And that's really the kind of food that we should be eating.
That's nice. I'm curious, now that you've transplanted yourself to British Columbia, what are you finding there in the plant world that you're enjoying at this time of year?
Well, the main reason I took this position in Victoria, BC, is that the Canadian medical system is very different than the American medical system, where most of the money paid to doctors and health providers are healthcare providers is paid out by the insurance companies, by Blue Cross, Medicare, etc. And quite honestly, without being too cynical, these entities, the insurance companies, make money for every bypass that's done, every aspirin that's dispensed. They're making money off the disease, and the models become that skewed and corrupted. Well, up in north of the 49th parallel there, the Canadian government is paying the shot for all their patients, all their citizens' healthcare problems. And they see the average Canadian getting more fat and clogged up and inflamed. They've got the same disease spectrum there. But those folks, they're serious about trying to get their citizens healthier. So at the clinic where I'm starting to work, at Aroga Lifestyle Clinic, the flow of patients, the Canadian government pays for the dietitian to do the counseling. And so the flow of patients who come into Aroga, they see the Aroga physician, and the next stop is the plant-based dietitian. And he or she gives the patient a way of eating, shows them videos, gives them handouts, takes them shopping, and then goes back to the doctors. And both the doctor and the dietitian follow the patient month to month to month to make sure that they're adhering to a healthy diet and lifestyle. And the changes they're getting is just remarkable. I want to document that and bring that experience back to the States and start presenting this at medical meetings, saying, let's look at what is happening when you get plant-based nutrition incorporated into standard patient care. Look at the benefits for everyone, the patients, the doctors, and the medical care system. So I'm an advanced scout trying to bring back some good news to our colleagues here in the good old US of A. And by the way, the clinic I'm working in, Aroga, it's a Sanskrit word. Roga apparently means disease or illness or blemish. So Aroga is without disease, without blemish. And so Aroga, this is spotless health is the name of the clinic. And lovely people, and they all know the importance of plant-based nutrition. I'm excited to join their staff and, as I said, bring this good news back to the States.
That's great. Yeah. And I can only imagine over time the healthcare economics of the healthcare investment that Canada's making, and how hopefully, seeing how it will improve the economic welfare of the entire country, how we might learn a little bit from our neighbors up north. So that's wonderful.
Indeed.
Thank you, Dr. Klaper, for everything you've taught us today, and for your overflowing and consistent hope for a better future for all of us and for our kids and grandkids. Really appreciate your time this evening, and want to take this into conclusion for now. When we consider all of these negative environmental and climate change effects, and then add the harmful effects of animal-based diets on human health, it's clear that we need to make these changes for our survival as individuals, as communities, and across the world and for our planet. So it is unfortunately incumbent upon us to take difficult steps at this point in history, more so than ever before, to make these changes. Yet it is not only important, and it's also delicious. And we hope that many more of you will join us in the coming months and years to explore plant-based living, to explore a whole food plant-based diet and make it your own. So if you'd like to learn more, of course, you can always join us online for these webinars, but we do many things in person. And I'm going to make a plug for an event we're hosting next week in Harlem for our New Yorkers. We're going to be screening Cowspiracy, which Dr. Klaper mentioned, in Harlem, with a talk back with Victoria Moran, a wonderful vegan author and educator and a good friend of Dr. Klaper's. I see you there. Yes. So I'm posting in the comments feed some information about how to sign up for that. That's Monday evening at a wonderful cafe in Harlem, Jinjian Cafe. So join us there. And then the other question is, well, if I'm not already whole food plant-based, where do I go to learn how to make meals that work for me? And my answer to you is, coming up this Sunday, join us right back here on YouTube or Facebook or LinkedIn, wherever you're joining us from. And we will be learning with Chef Carol Levy as she makes whole food plant-based dishes free of salt, oil, and sugar. It can be done, and it's delicious. So 5 p.m. Eastern back here. On top of that, I want to call out to our partners, Planted Society and Humane Montclair. If you'd like to learn more about dining options in Montclair for the Plant-Based for the Planet initiative this month, visit plantedsociety.org/Montclair. Anybody in Northern New Jersey, or if you want to take a quick ride on the New Jersey Transit from Manhattan, join them and take advantage of the wonderful plant-based dining opportunities all throughout Essex County. And congrats to all of you for the great work you've done to put those meals in place at these restaurants. And the more patrons they get this month, I know this, the more they'll keep them on the menus. So let's support local restaurateurs and their choices to offer better plant-based options for all of us. So as we're closing up, I want to thank our team, Karina Pierce, Jim Spellos, and our communications team, always for helping us to produce and share these wonderful events. You can find us also coming up later this month and into May. We're going to bring back our Nourish Your Mind series, where we will be doing meal prep and shopping for cognitive resilience with one of our local health coaches, Lori Courage, and a shopping tour led by Karina Pierce and Sergio Villavicencio from our team. And then 3 weeks later, Dr. Dean Ornish is coming to share the results of his amazing Alzheimer's and mild cognitive impairment study, where we can learn about how food and lifestyle interventions can support cognitive health and maybe even turn back the clock a little bit on for any advancing cognitive issues. So definitely join us for the Nourish Your Mind virtual series later on in May. So with that, thank you so much. Have a great evening. And I hope you all enjoy wonderful plant-based meals from here on to your health, for the health of our planet, getting to the root causes of so many of the things that bother us day to day. We have the power to do all sorts of good in the world, and that starts with food. Take care.